Well, hey folks, Real Honesty with John Ritland's Times Wrestling to Piss Me Off, Redux Part 15. Part 16 will be going up within the next couple weeks. By the beginning of June, or maybe even the second week in June, I will not be doing these until about September. Take some time off. A lot of WWE New Japan shows to do. Other commitments, work. Summer is especially busy at my work. And just in general, my time's going to be limited, so I'm going to have to, devote my time to the series and the shows that'll actually do well, like my weekly shows. And I will be also doing, starting up a new show, Which Was Worse, a series, worse of these two title reigns, worse of these two pay-per-views, worse of these two matches, worse of these two booking decisions. And find some positives, but mainly the negatives in them. I'm not like a negative Nancy. I'm not in a negative, person when it comes to wrestling, but I'm passionate about it. And when something irritates me, I'm going to rant on it. That's what I'm going to do here. Shout out to Hitman683 for the inspiration for that Which Was Worse topic. And thank you guys for supporting my channel. Just big thank you. It's really all I can say. Whether you have your own YouTube channel or whether you just have an account strictly to watch my show and watch other videos, it really does mean a lot that you guys support my channel. Because I'm just a wrestling fan. I ain't a journalist. I ain't a reporter. I ain't ever going to claim to be any of this kind of stuff. I'm just me watching wrestling and observing as I do and as I see fit. So anyway, let's get cracking on with this. Removing Rey Mysterio's mask. Yeah, it's going to be WCW themed stuff here. They already were getting to, WCW was already getting to the point where they were removing luchadors' masks. They did it with Juventud Guerrera at Super Brawl 8. And when he removed his mask, he looked like a member of Menudo, and not one of the talented members either, because the guy was a great talent as far as agility and as far as ability. Guy couldn't really cut a promo, and he didn't have a ton of charisma. I mean, that's just my opinion personally. I'm not saying that Juvi was bad. Apparently, he does have like an inflated ego and stuff like that, which has cost him a whole lot of big money. Especially in WWE, I think he was gone within, 6-8 months? Like, big shock. I mean, I wouldn't have expected that he would have been around all that much. He did have a decent run in the early days of NWA TNA. But, so they removed Juvi's mask, and like I say, looked like a member of Menudo. But whatever. He still had a bit of a push going, kind of something like that. He had a great match with Billy Kidman the night after Fall Brawl 98, which was the same night that Ric Flair made his return to WCW. Just imagine listen to Jim Cornette's podcast, podcast pieces, but he talks about how Flair almost made the jump to WCW or WWE from WCW. That would have been kind of cool. But anyway, around this time in 99, actually it was I think February or March 99, they removed Rey Mysterio's mask. Now, with Juvi, okay, I sort of could get it. I mean, I don't know Psychosis unmasked in WCW, but I know he unmasked at some point because he showed up in WWE without his mask. So that's a little fuzzy to me. But with Rey, his mask was his identity. It made him seem like a superhero. He was, even though he looked like a 14-year-old kid playing wrestler, until he packed on some muscle. And that's not knocking Rey, that's just how small and slight he was. But he was incredibly talented and incredibly gifted, and still is. Don't misunderstand me. But injuries have undone a lot of what he could do, later in his career especially. But Rey's mask was his identity. It was a way for him to be marketable to people. Took his mask off, he looked like that 14-year-old kid playing wrestler. And even though the talent was still there, and people could say, oh, it's just a mask, it was just this. No, it was his identity. And it made him seem like just another guy. So even though he still had a decent run after that, there wasn't anything to his gimmick. There wasn't anything to him. He had no gimmick at that point. And, removing Rey's mask is one of the biggest blunders that WCW made in its later years, because really the mask should have been the selling point, because kids love wearing the mask to shows, and Rey could do the kind of stuff where it's like, hey, they could be like Rey. It's like, if he can do it, a small guy like that, maybe I can grow up and do that kind of stuff. Takes off the mask, that's it. That's all he was. You might as well just cut him off at the knees right there, because that's what you basically did. Even though the talent was still great, and even though Rey himself was still tremendously talented, didn't do any good, didn't do any favors for him. And they removed other luchadors' masks, but Rey Mysterio's mask removal in particular, really irritated me because it didn't need to be done. It did not need to be done. It cut off marketing. It cut off a good marketing revenue for them. It is, merch revenue and stuff like that. It just didn't do him any favors. Excuse me. It didn't do him any favors. It didn't do anybody any favors. Just made Rey seem like one of the guys when he should have been one of the standout performers. Even though he'd been with the company for a few years, that mask was him. He was the mask, and then they made it mean nothing. And now we move on to Russo's WCW tenure. Now I've talked about Russo at length, so I don't know if I'm going to necessarily spend a ton of time on this watch as this takes the rest of the show as I say that. Russo was not the sole reason WCW died. Let's get that out of the way right now. Standards and practices, the AOL Time Warner merger, were a big reason why WCW went down. Russo just hastened it because, am I saying that he didn't try? I'm sure he did. I'm sure he tried. I'm sure he cared about some of the young talents. But he also did the whole thing with Ed Ferrara being Oklahoma, green lighting that. And Russo apologized to JR and whatever, and I'm not going to focus on that. I'm not going to focus on that aspect. That's between them. Whatever. I already ranted about Ed Ferrara. I think it was just let me look at the list here. I ranted about it in the first part if you want to hear my thoughts about Ed Ferrara, the stupid fat fuck that mocked JR's Bell's palsy. That guy never deserved to be in wrestling for what he did. I don't care how much of a prick JR was or how, hard JR was to deal with. Mocking a man's disability like that when Ed Ferrara had no room to talk is another story for another day. But yeah, he's a fucking idiot. But Russo's WCW tenure is seen as some of the most ridiculous stuff. All the stuff on a pole, Viagra on a pole, the San Francisco 49ers match, or the Gold Miners match, or something like that. Judy Bagwell on a forklift, David Arquette being world champion, all this kind of stuff. I mean, there were some positives to it. It did make the company seem a little, okay, the company was trying to do something different. But at the same time, Russo wasn't the savior. They paid him how much damn money? I mean, they paid him what, $750,000 a year, $550,000 a year. I don't know what exactly it was. Could he have helped improve the ratings? See, the problem is you needed the other Vince. You needed Vince McMahon there because Vince McMahon was able to take the ideas of Russo and reshape them and make them plausible and stuff like that. Russo on his own, he was just doing whatever, and even if it was standards and practices that were cutting off certain things and letting him do certain things on TV, he needed to come up with different stuff for it because it was not working well. I recommend people check out the Death of WCW book, and I think they even did another edition where they added even more stuff. So check out both. I mean, buy both. Both are worth it, but check it out. It is a fabulous book. Very well done, and details a whole lot of stuff that, whether it was Russo's fault, Bischoff's fault, any of that, there's a lot that people don't necessarily know, and that was a pretty damn good book. It was about as close as we're going to get to a definitive look inside WCW's inner workings. But Russo's WCW tenure, I mean, he made himself world champion at the end of the damn thing. He was in that company for a damn year, and I'm not saying that it was all his fault, but he did not help WCW stay out of the gutter. He did make it a whole lot worse. And was everything bad? No. But a lot of it was. Stuff with Oklahoma, him being Cruiserweight champion, having Medusa come out of retirement. No wonder Medusa wanted to leave the damn company. That kind of stuff. Just, stuff with the cruiserweights. Okay, having Billy Kidman. All due respect to Billy Kidman, beat Hulk Hogan 3 matches in a row. I mean, what the hell? And it was stupid booking. The New Blood Millionaires Club thing, it was a mess. From WCW before Russo got there was a mess. But by the time he got there, good God. I mean, by the time it was like a few months in, the company wasn't in that great a shape. Okay, ratings might have ticked up by that much. Great. So it was on the talent also to be able to do something with it. It wasn't all Russo. Am I saying that Russo again does not deserve all the blame for the ratings declining into the shitter, but he deserves some of the damn blame. And really, the people that defend him saying that he could save wrestling now, he's bankrupted two companies essentially. There's a reason why NWA, TNA, was the way it was for a while, and why now Impact is having to get back and rebuild itself. A lot of it was Dixie, but some of it was Russo's booking. Because take a look at some of the years they had where they had great talent before Hogan and Bischoff came along. What'd they do with it? They didn't do jack shit with it. They made a few stars, and then they didn't make a lot of them. So yeah, his WCW tenure is seen as a goddamn joke. Because Russo himself was a goddamn joke. And now we move on to Russo taking credit for the Attitude Era, for taking all the credit. Now, he's said in other interviews he's not taking credit for all of it. And in other interviews he says no one gives me the credit for it. Am I saying that the Attitude Era would have happened without Vince Russo? I mean, he did help Vince realize that people need to be more themselves. There were others that had input and stuff like that, I'm sure. And that's fine. But some of it was ECW. A lot of it was also Vince McMahon realizing, okay, I need to start listening to my talent more. Because that was a lot of it. Even though I don't like Shawn, even though I don't necessarily care for Shawn, especially pilled out Shawn, he did have some ideas on letting people be more themselves and going balls to the wall and having fun and whatever. But Russo, whenever he tries to take any kind of lion's share of credit for the Attitude Era, there's a reason why wrestling has not been as popular since then. Because one company went out of business. Now, yes, were the ratings really super high? Okay, yeah. It was a great time to be a wrestling fan. Flip back and forth between WCW and WWE. But I'm sorry, I'm not going to give him full credit for that. He gets some, because he did have a hand in it. But, oh no, he is not the sole reason that the Attitude Era turned around. Or the Attitude Era was the biggest amount of money that modern wrestling has made. And I say modern wrestling because a lot of territorial wrestling did a whole lot of great business, live events and stuff like that before cable TV was really insane. So yeah, him taking credit for the Attitude Era, there are a lot of people that have a lot of bad things to say about him, and he's a piece of shit. So you know what, I'm going to move on from that. And here we go with a couple more topics. Roman Reigns' push. I've talked about this before, and I said at the end, and by the way, check it out. And I'm just going to tell you the marker. It starts with an Enzo rant at 22 minutes on my Questions for Me episode 50 video. It's around 22 is where the Enzo rant starts, so you might want to hear that. But also, I talk about some preconceived notions that people have about me when it comes to Roman Reigns. I hate the character. I think he's stale. I don't really like the character presented on TV. I find him boring, but I do not hate the man himself. So I want to make that very clear right now. The man himself seems to work very hard, as much as shit as I give his character and some of the matches that he's put on. I do not hate the man himself. But his push is ridiculous. We're at, 4 years? 4 years into this, and that's the best that they're doing? Now let's try to make him an underdog. They were already trying to make him an underdog a couple of years ago. That didn't work. You can't take a guy that looks like that and make him an underdog. It just isn't gonna goddamn work. It isn't gonna goddamn work at all. Roman Reigns is not an underdog. Should be booked like a badass, whether I think that he's legit tough or not. And you got to be tough to be in wrestling, or you got to be Disco Inferno, the pile of shit that he is. And I hope to God that he is never allowed near anything big. Oh wait, he's gonna be part of the StarCast thing that All In is doing in Chicago. Whatever. I hope that Cody, the Bucks, Omega, Skrull, Okada. I hope all those guys that are involved there have a big house, since they apparently sold out the venue, and that it can work. I really hope it does, and that it can lead to a lot of wrestling, a lot of wrestling companies seeing, maybe if we buddy up, we can get these big shows and split the profits and stuff like that, and it can be viable alternatives to WWE, because a lot of people, myself included, are crying out for alternatives to WWE, hence why I finally started to try reviewing as much New Japan as I can, because I just got to the point where WWE has burned me out despite all the talent that they have across the 3 platforms that they try, Raw, SmackDown, NXT. But Roman Reigns' push. They've had guys that could be the guy. Seth Rollins. I think they could have given Dean Ambrose a chance. They didn't really give Dean Ambrose much of a chance. But especially Braun. In the past couple years, 2017 and this year, they should have had him face Lesnar at Mania 34, and he should have beat him. Like, seriously, I mean, that might have taken, or they should have made a triple threat and had Reigns, take the pinfall and stuff like that. And then Lesnar could have tried to get his title back because he was going to stick around, but nope, they got to have him break Punk's record, even though it's not the same title. It's not all Roman Reigns' fault. Some of it is his fault because he's not that interesting. Sorry, he's just not. You guys can think he's interesting all you damn well want, and that's fine. I'm not saying you guys are wrong, but Roman Reigns to me is not interesting at all. 100%. His push is ridiculous. He's been pushed down our throats, and even when they're trying not to push him down our throats, they are pushing him down our throats. It's embarrassing, guys. It's embarrassing, and they need to move on from that kind of stuff. It has not been working. People are more divisive on him, and I'm not saying the guy doesn't work hard. He does work hard, but they need to move on from him and go to somebody else because fucking hell, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely goddamn ridiculous. Now, the John Cena burials. Cena has not been burying people nearly as much as in the past. I wouldn't have had him beat Baron Corbin back at, I believe, SummerSlam last year. That didn't necessarily work, even though I knew he would. But, and then he beat Elias, I think it was on the Christmas edition of Raw. Christmas edition, or the edition right afterwards. I think it was the Christmas edition, which was ridiculous. But those are modern ones. They had the one with the Nexus really pissed me off. His feud with Angle wasn't necessarily great, even though Cena tried. I'm certainly not saying Angle didn't. There were a lot of times where it got to the point where, yes, Cena did earn it through hard work, and I'm not saying Reigns hasn't earned his spot through hard work. He has. But you got Reigns can't be like Cena, and Cena is his own person. I'm not even the biggest Cena fan. But he did bury a various amount of people. Now, Shawn didn't want to be WWE champion, and hence why he decided that, I'm not going to be the champion in Mania 23, which I actually think would have been just fine. I think Shawn getting one more run with glory would have been great, but he didn't want it. That's okay. But you look at the Nexus, you look at like Alex Riley, the R-Truth thing at Capital Punishment 2011. It was just a stopgap for, and shout out to Shadows Serena. Shadows Ariana 15. Sorry if I got the name wrong. I tend to mix words together. We talked about the Capital Punishment one. I'll actually finish up on that. Cena's burials could become his whole damn series. I could actually do one on that, but I've reached the point now with Cena where he's basically just part-time now and he's just going to be done soon. But the thing at Capital Punishment bothered me because they built up Truth decently as a heel. He was entertaining, but he was also unhinged. And then after that, they just made him goofy and everything. And Cena beating him, I'm not saying it was a burial necessarily. And yeah, I got why Truth didn't win the title, but Truth maybe should have won the title, even if it was just for a couple of weeks. Yeah, it would have been hot shotting it. But at least you could have said, hey, Truth was WWE champion. But yeah, then that, and then you had the whole thing where Cena beat Del Rio later in the year for a couple of weeks for the title, and then it just a lot of stuff with Cena's burials really pissed me off. And the thing with the Nexus is the one that irritates me the most. Because that was the one where you should have been able to say, okay, we have this big hot group. Cena should not be in charge of the finish. Or if Cena was in charge of the finish, he should have actually listened to Jericho and Edge, and he's admitted that it was the wrong call. But he should have taken the pinfall there. Because Nexus needed to be the victors. My opinion, Nexus should have made a goddamn clean sweep and should have, or maybe should have had 5 members strong against Cena and just beaten them down and won, and that would have been even better. But now Cena had to be Super Cena, and then even, like I said, has admitted that he made his mistakes. But yeah, Cena's burials in particular pissed me off because there were a lot of talents that did not deserve that burial. They could have benefited from beating Cena. I mean, not all of them, but Rusev, Bray Wyatt, to go for modern ones. That was ridiculous. The one with Rusev did give us a U.S. Open challenge, which was really nice and a really good, amount of good TV. Made Raw destination programming, and in 2015 that was hard to do. But I was locked in for the John Cena U.S. Open challenges. I'm actually excited for what Seth Rollins is doing with the IC title, but too many burials by Cena that didn't need to happen. And just really, leave in the comments what, ones you thought were the worst. But that's where I'm going to leave this off. So anyway, agree, disagree with what I said. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Twitter link in the description. It's been Real Honesty with John Ritlin. It's been Times of Wrestling to Piss Me Off, part 15. And I will see you soon.